Everything about it is bad. It's
Yeah.
everything you've seen before. The lead actress is terrible. The writing and dialogue are terrible. The storyline and concept is completely god awful. We're back with another episode of Nerd Legion. As promised last week, we are here with Zack Snyder's version of Rebel Moon. I guess it's the only version of Rebel Moon, technically.
It is his thing.
It's a version of many other forms of science fiction and fantasy media that you have seen previously. This movie, up front, is terrible. It is terrible, but it will be funny to hear us tell you why it's terrible and how exactly derivative it is, and how nothing in this movie makes sense, is impactful, or is even vaguely interesting, which I guess is true of most of Zack Snyder's work in general, but this was supposed to be an original property. And it's funny to hear the way that he talks about this, because this was supposed to be the start of some sort of sci-fi Netflix empire. There's already going to be a second, most likely terrible movie within this sequence. He has pitched it as a long-running movie series with tie-ins to graphic novels and other like intellectual property licensing deals, but the world itself sucks and isn't fascinating in the least. So I don't know how they're going to get anybody to kind of buy into the lore of the Rebel Moon universe, which I don't even know what the universe is supposed to be called.
Yeah, I mean, it's what it is to me is like I mean, the Mother World stuff is about as close to like a Warhammer 40,000 live action thing we've gotten.
Up until Henry Cavill crushes it.
Geez, I can't wait. Please, Mr. Cavill, bring us to the 40K promised land. But this is we can't put it all on Zack Snyder, because it's co-writer Kurt Johnstad and him. This has really kind of been like their brainchild, apparently since the late 90s. And there's a lot of talk about this being like a rejected Star Wars script and all that kind of stuff too. I did some research on it, and that's not exactly the case. The closest this came to being involved in Star Wars at all is that it was originally apparently pitched to Lucasfilm as a more mature take on Star Wars. And according to Zack Snyder in interviews, he said, like, once Disney took over, he knew he just couldn't get it started with them because it was too dark and too gritty, because we can't have things like that in Star Wars. Andor. Andor. So it wasn't that Disney didn't want it or anything like that. No, certainly not. So this was thought of as a more mature Seven Samurai kind of take on Star Wars, whatever. And then he's like, fine, I'll do it myself then. And what we got is Rebel Moon. And I'm so frustrated to start off, because I love when we get any sort of new science fiction universe. And because it's so rare these days, let me finish. You'll see where I'm going with this. Is that it's so rare because we live in a world, and we have lived in a world for a very long time, of remakes, of sequels, of spin-offs. So few entities are willing to take a risk on new science fiction or new fantasy universes. There's so when one is attempted and it fails so badly, it makes me mad, because it's going to set back the opportunities for other people who want to do that thing as well, because they'll point to Rebel Moon and they'll be like, oh, look how, how critics didn't like it, blah, 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 and it's tough to really measure success in the Netflix era, honestly, because if you look at like something like Rotten Tomatoes, which is not, the be all end all of movie reviewing sites, obviously, but it's got a very low critic score in like the 20s. And then the audience score is in the 60s. So it's Rebel Moon is one of those things where there's enough people out there that aren't, going to look at it super critically, that are going to just watch it and like kind of benignly enjoy it, that it was like the number one movie on Netflix as far as like most watch or whatever. So it's really difficult to measure success. Like critically, this movie is not good. viewership wise, perhaps in the metrics that Netflix cares about, maybe this movie was successful. I don't even know. I don't really understand how all that is judged right now, right? A lot of people watched it, clearly. We watched it. A lot of other people did. But, so it's tough to say. But my point is that on the critical side alone, I think it does hurt for a new science fiction entity to be panned this much. In that it hurts the chance of other people to do that kind of thing. We've seen this in the past with stuff like Chronicles of Riddick, which I really liked and I really wanted more of, and I thought was much better actually than Rebel Moon, and
better.
was actually original. It was a very original science fiction universe. It was so cool. And I made a tweet the other day that was like, hey, there's this new science. There's a science fiction movie out right now that has like political intrigue and really unique characters and beautiful landscapes and all that kind of stuff. It's called Chronicles of Riddick. You should totally go watch it. You see what I did there? It was the old Riddick switcheroo. But like, but even things like that, weren't successful enough. I feel like if something like Chronicles of Riddick had come out now, it would have actually been much better received because people are in much more of a sci-fi mindset in general. But I mean, man, like where do you even begin with Rebel Moon as far as like how generic it is? We can just like tick things off, right? It's like it's very admittedly Seven Samurai take, right? Go get the cool heroes to save the village thing. Like that's they've said that's what they had in mind anyway. So whatever,
I mean, I'm gonna complain about this for a moment. Like it is clearly incredibly derivative of Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, which, by the way, has already been replayed in cinema about a bazillion times. And basically, if you're not familiar with Seven Samurai, it is an extremely good movie, probably one of the best movies ever made. It's not my personal favorite Kurosawa movie, but it's probably his most well-known movie.
Are you a Yojimbo fan? I like that one.
So I like Yojimbo better. I like Rashomon better. I like Throne of Blood better, but that's neither here nor there. I like Ron better as well. Like I like some of his Shakespeare adaptations. But all of them are excellent films, right? Seven Samurai is just a fucking great movie. And the concept of Seven Samurai is that there are bandits who are trying to assault a farming village to steal their harvest, which is literally the exact plot of this movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. We'll get there. Because it's still, by the way, a crop of grain, which is very fucking weird in a sci-fi universe. It could have been any resource, but they just chose grain again, even though that doesn't even make sense. But the problem is that this plot has been done about 1 billion times within Hollywood. And it was done literally right after Seven Samurai was made with The Magnificent Seven, the famous Western movie, which literally was Americans taking the Seven Samurai and remaking it in a Western for the American audience, right? Yeah. It's even been done by Pixar. It's literally the plot of A Bug's Life. The movie A Bug's Life.
Oh, it was Pixar, wasn't it? I was thinking Ants. My bad.
Yeah,
that was
A Bug's Life is what? It was the second Pixar movie after Toy Story, I believe, and
second or third, depending on when Monsters Inc. came out. I can't remember.
It was before Monsters Inc. But anyway, the point is that is literally the same plot about ants and their harvest being taken by grasshoppers who invade and bully them. So it's like I have seen this story 1 million times, and it's been done 1 million different ways by Hollywood, and it lacks all originality.
Mm-hmm. We've got the Seven Samurai comparison out of the way. That's the most obvious one. And there's when you remake something like that, too, you have to make little tweaks that make people interested, right? When you don't, it's not very interesting. Let's go beyond.
Sorry, I'm
that.
not done with the Seven Samurai thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please continue.
So it's not just about the bandits. It's about the introduction of all of these guardian characters. You're assembling basically a team of people who are going to fight the invading force, right? That is the whole premise of it. And, it takes place. So it's about going out into the world and kind of finding these people and then convincing them that defending the village or defending the community is the right thing to do. So it's not just, hey, somebody wants to steal our harvest. It's the way that the movie's pacing goes forward. Now, why this doesn't make sense in this particular concept, again, is, as I said, it is about, like, I have to, the premise of this film is that there is an agrarian community at the edge of the galaxy. So it's similar to Star Wars. We're dealing with a backwater planet and this, in this case, kingdom from the mother world as opposed to the empire, right? And there is some sort of rebellion fomenting on the outskirts. And so this planet just has a bunch of farmers on it. Well, in this one community that's maybe a couple hundred people. And for really dumb reasons, this giant spaceship comes up and basically says, give us your harvest and we're killing your leader, and also we will kill the rest of you if you don't give us your harvest. Now, why this is so dumb, guys, is because the best way I can describe this community is space Amish, okay? Because they actively, this community actively like lives in an agrarian period where they have wooden houses and they use beasts of burden. And
with sliding doors, though. They have electric sliding doors in their wooden houses. You notice that? I thought that was a bit weird.
So, but they actively reject technology because when they are offered more money by the agents, the evil agents who come to negotiate with them for their harvest, they are told, like their leadership says, oh no, we don't really want robots and like mechanized stuff because that's not within the spirit of our community. So this is believable in the way that Amish people are believable in the modern world. There is a beauty in creating that kind of community.
We believe that doing the work by hand connects us to the land and honors these sacred fields that give us life.
But what is so dumb is that this would be like the American military rocking up to the middle of Ohio and Pennsylvania where the Amish people live and then demanding that these people with primitive tools like feed an aircraft carrier. It's like, that's not possible. And why would they go there? And also, if you are an advanced civilization, wouldn't you have developed better farming techniques? This is why in science fiction they have stores on ships with non-perishable goods, or replicators in the case of Star Trek. Like, you wouldn't create a giant ship that wasn't a self-sustaining entity. And at the end of the day, DoA, even if you needed food, you wouldn't go to the space Amish to get it. You would go to the, on that same moon, there are more advanced cities with technology that they literally go to that are more than 200 people. It's not possible for 200 people to create a harvest that is going to feed whatever these epic Warhammer 40K style massive starships. So the whole premise is just so viscerally dumb that you can't even get invested in this because it makes absolutely no sense. And and you could just make some tweaks. Like, what if this was a mining planet that had valuable fuel or some other resource that actually made some sense? But to have this like space Amish society in this situation is so absurd.
Now, there is an in-universe explanation for
Fuck
this.
off.
And they do touch on it. I'm not saying this is a good reason, but the reason they give is that apparently this valley or whatever is like hyper plentiful. Because remember, they're trying to hide it at the beginning. So that's supposed to be our reason. So I don't think anything you said is wrong. I'm just saying there's going to be people out there.
It doesn't matter how hyper plentiful it is. You can't.
I'm talking
feed
to TikTok right now,
50,
not you. Hold on.
You can't feed 50,000 people off of a 200-person village that uses horses.
We know that, but it doesn't matter because the movie gave the explanation. And there's going to be Rebel Moon fans out there like, but they said the valley was very plentiful and they have lots of extra grain, so clearly it's enough, and that's going to be their reason. So I'm just saying we acknowledge that reason was given. It still seems beyond the pale of visibility or a realistic viability. That's the word I'm looking for, right? So that's the reason they give. It doesn't seem realistic, but that is out there. So we acknowledge that the reason is in the movie for why they would come to this place. That said, I want to move on. I'm less interested in this because, like, yeah, whatever, space Amish is fine. What weirded me out with that was that they had things like the sliding electric doors and lights and things like that. So it's like they clearly use some technology, but not, any technology in their farming. And it was kind of like we start the movie off with our hero like smelling some dirt, and she's really enjoying smelling the dirt, and then they go have a party, and the mayor is like, "All right, everybody have sex." And then that's how
It's
we
my kind of
start our
party.
movie. Like, okay, all right, that's how we're starting things. We're going for it.
Dude, they're space Amish. They need a lot of children to do the labor of the farming. That's just
I guess
how
so.
that's just how primitive agrarian societies work, Noah.
So make love tonight for the harvest, for the very food we eat. Yeah. For the gods.
There is, apparently, after the second one is released, there is going to be director's cut R-rated versions of each part released that are supposedly longer, give much more backstory, have much more sex and violence and all that. So, if you're into that, you can look forward to it. This movie does. I don't want to get into. I want to get into the plot stuff later. I want to touch a little bit more first on things we have seen before. So I'm a big Warhammer fan, and in case you haven't seen Warhammer, all you need to do is look at the way the motherland is portrayed, and that is the Imperium in Warhammer 40K, right down to the shape of the guns, the sort of like beautifying that they do their weapons, the
flags.
gold filigree, the flags are another great example. Just even the way their grunt soldiers look and their officers work, it's carbon copy Warhammer 40,000. Their ships look very similar. When you see the king, there's a very like pseudo Western religious sort of aspect to all of it, with the big steeples and the very Gothic sort of stuff. The priests with like skull stuff everywhere. Like that's what disappointed. That's one of the many things that disappointed with this movie. But anyway, that stood out, where it's like, geez, you couldn't even find anything visually interesting to do. You just aped 40K, and that was your answer to this. How are you going to make this motherland thing? That pissed me off, right? Because like the thing is beyond that stuff, like the ship design is not great in this movie. It's
not
very
interesting.
boring. It's very generic. The Millennium Falcon of this movie essentially looks like a barge, and not like in a spacey way at all. It just looks like a barge that flew up out of the river. It's very boring. What else do we got? Like, you've got this ensemble kind of approach, which is, coming from Seven Samurai, obviously you're going and gathering these people, but you can't do an ensemble movie without really giving two things, which none of these characters seem to really have much of, is motivation and backstory. We didn't really get much of that for any of these. We got the bare basics for all of them. And I was reading more about this, and there was talks for a while to make it into a series instead of a few movies, but Zack Snyder apparently insisted that it must be movies. I think this would have been much better as a series, because this could have been like each episode would be them going and collecting someone. You could stretch that out, give each character a good, decent backstory. This would have. I'm not a big fan of like the miniseries thing on streaming things. I like movies. I like just sitting down and watching a movie and getting a good compact story that way. This is one thing I will say I think would have worked much better as a miniseries than a movie.
It's also the fact that the source material itself, Seven Samurai, is 3.5 hours long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it is
that's how long Zack Snyder wanted to make this.
Yeah, but it has to be, is my point. Seven Samurai is not a boring movie. That is some of the fastest, 3.5 hours of your fucking life watching that movie, because it is such a good film and you're so invested in it. But the reason why you're so invested in that film is because they didn't have miniseries in the 50s when that movie was released, right? And so they had to do it all kind of in one shot as a movie. I mean, it goes back to all of like the epic films of that period. We got to see so many of the, a bunch of Kurosawa films. Ran is also like over 3 hours long. Because it's King Lear but samurais. And think about Lawrence of Arabia and like all of these like sweeping Hollywood epics. Yeah. Ben-Hur. Think about all these sweeping Hollywood epics that we saw during the 50s and 60s, and not only Hollywood but Japanese cinema as well. Because you kind of had to get it all done in one shot. We are not constrained by this any longer. But my point about Seven Samurai is when you have so many characters and a complex plot, you really have to give it time to breathe, and you have to highlight all of these characters. Otherwise, you end up with Rebel Moon, where you don't have any attachment to any of the characters because they have no backstory and they have no personality, which is like why you don't give a shit about anybody in this movie. And why I totally agree with you, Doa, that this is better as some sort of series, like 8 or 10 episode series, where you don't have to, you could have the same budget probably, because a lot of these scenes need to be just dialogue. They need to be cheap, dialogue heavy introductions to characters and less special effects, and especially slow motion, which is just fucking terrible and overused in this film.
Do we even need to talk about Zack Snyder in slow motion? It's like the most well-known thing in the entire universe right now. Like, yes, he loves slow motion. Yes, he uses it too much. Yeah, it was cool the first time we all saw it in 300. Now it's not as cool when it's done with just like somebody falling over. It's
we'll talk about why 300 works and why this movie, because 300 is actually very good in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's still his best film.
But when it comes to slow motion, the thing that cracked me up, though, this is just a brief aside, was that there was one shot where he like did slow motion inception, where he put slow motion inside the slow motion, which is when what is that? Yeah, the prince in this movie. What's his name?
Hold on.
Tarak.
Yeah, Tarak. Not to be confused with Turok Dinosaur Hunter. It's Tarak Griffin Rider.
Yeah, when he's taming the griffin and he gets thrown off and he's jumping back on top of the back of the griffin, it starts in slow motion and then it cuts to even slower motion and I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this? This is absolutely awful.
The thing is, it goes back to, I think, Zack Snyder doing a lot of comic book movies, doing a lot of DC movies. 300, wasn't that like I mean, obviously, I know
it's a Frank Miller graphic novel.
It was based on a Frank Miller graphic novel. That's what I was thinking of. And so when I watch Zack Snyder's work, visually, like shot composition, lighting, all this stuff, I really like a lot of it. Honestly, it looks like comic book panels, in the best way. So I think visually he does a lot of really cool things in his films. I mean, a lot of the stuff that people talk about the DC movies being too dark and all that. I really like his visual style of putting a shot together and all that kind of stuff. And so when he really tries to be painterly in that regard, I think the movie and a lot of his stuff succeeds in that category. I don't like the amount of slow motion, but he creates a lot of really cool still images that evoke a lot of like action and emotional. I like that side of his filmmaking, but the storytelling is just, I think, where things fall off really hard.
I mean, even the visuals in this are so bland because of the design problems that exist. Like you say, it's so derivative. I mean, the reason why
the framing and the lighting, that's the part I like. The costuming, that stuff doesn't do it for me. Yeah.
The reason why 300 was good, though, is because he just used the Frank Miller graphic novel as a storyboard, and the Frank Miller graphic novel is a masterpiece in visual storytelling. So he basically just had to turn the exact shots that Frank Miller designed into movie, which was, look, credit to him. He just did it instead of having an ego about it and trying to do his own thing. But the reason why that movie is beautiful is very not about Zack Snyder and much more about Frank Miller.
Sure. But whatever the reason, he's kind of taken that philosophy and I think done a good job of applying it to the other films that he's made, I mean, I do like looking at images like that. It's just when I look at it, I'm like, man, I wish this was like him doing maybe some cinematography for a Warhammer 40K movie that was written by somebody not him. Like that's
fair.
That's what I kind of think with that. Like, I'm not like, get Zack Snyder out of Hollywood. Like, no, not at all. I think he's got a lot of talent in some very specific areas. I just think this story is just not one of them at all. I do want to say one more thing about the ensemble nature of this too, is that and the lack of backstory and motivation, and kind of like the lack of time given to getting everyone together, is that there is a way you can do this. And I think the best version of it that I can think of, if you want to be very compact with it, is go watch like the first 10-20 minutes of the 2006 movie Flyboys, which is a movie. It's a James Franco action movie about World War I fighter pilots. It's actually like a pretty fun adventure movie. I like it. But it has this sort of ensemble of different people coming from different places for different reasons, all going to fight in the French Air Legion, essentially, that was volunteers from different countries that came and just, they wanted to fight the Germans. They wanted to do it in an airplane. And so the French had a squad for that, is where this came from. The Lafayette Escadrille is, I think, what it was called. But they spend like maybe 5 to 10, maybe 5 minutes or less on each of these characters in these tiny little, really short, like only a couple shot vignettes where they tell you exactly who that character is, what their motivation for going is, and like their impetus for making that decision. Like one is like a boxer who's this African American boxer who's not treated very well, and he's good at boxing, but he wants to escape that life and learn how to fly an airplane, just get up into the sky and do something like cool and majestic in his mind. So that's him. And it's like maybe a 1 or 2 minute scene, and you know exactly who he is, kind of the type of person that he is, and why he wants to go. Then you have another one where it's like this rich guy that's essentially being shipped off to do this by his family, and comes from a long line of like military people, and he's expected to do this, and he doesn't want to do it, and he thinks that by doing this he's going to be safe off messing with airplanes instead of actually fighting. And then there's another one that's escaping from the law. And they show all their reasons really, really quickly and really, really effectively. So then when these characters get together and the movie actually begins, through their dialogue, you take what you already know about them, and then you get a lot of interesting character development through the movie. So I think if you're going to do something like that, you have to, kind of do it at the start if you don't have a lot of time to do it, and then let the characters mature with your knowledge of that backstory premise, as the movie goes on.
Right.
Whereas this, it's like scene by scene. Now we're going to pick up this person, short, boring scene to pick up, Bayduna, who is great in Kingdom if you're into, Korean zombie shows. But in this, she's like criminally underused. I love it that we have her scene where it's like she fights a spider lady, and Spider Lady's like, "Oh, revenge," and Dune is like, "My children were killed too, and revenge is not the answer. Die." And then the very next scene, no revenge. Revenge is not the reason to fight. Very next scene, we pick up Titus, who's like all drunk and all kind of stuff. He's like, "God, I don't want to go," and Cora's like, "But what if it was for revenge?" And he's like, "Revenge? I love revenge. Let's go." And so it's like we go right from no, revenge is bad to revenge is my motivation.
It's also, I mean, DoA, the thing that works. Yeah. I haven't seen Flyboys, but the context of the adversary is very important in these movies. Like, you understand World War I from being alive, right? So you know what the stakes of the conflict are and why people might be interested.
I wasn't there, but yeah.
Well, but I mean, like, it's a known historical thing that you can look into, right? So bear with me. In Star Wars, in A New Hope, what you get in terms of the adversary is, first off, an immediately iconic villain in the form of Darth Vader. The introduction of him as a powerful space wizard, which is really memorable because nobody had really done that in cinema up until that point in time. Yeah. And then also a prime motivation, like, you don't know anything about the politics of this universe the first time you watch A New Hope in Star Wars. Like, you know nothing. Coming in, and the audience knew nothing in 1977 when that movie was released. But you're coming in, and the stakes of the engagement are immediately set up. There is a super weapon that the Empire is building to consolidate power. There are people trying to steal the plans of the super weapon and abscond with them so that they can mount a counteroffensive and figure out what is going on. There's an active rebellion that prominent political figures like Princess Leia, the nobility of the planet Alderaan, are engaged in, right? So you immediately understand the stakes. You see kind of the villainy of the Empire. The problem, one of the biggest problems with this movie, is that you never really understand what the nemesis is. right? You don't understand what
You mean
the
the character nemesis or the villain of
I
the
mean
movie?
either, frankly, frankly.
Sure,
But
sure.
the mother world is doing, right? You get some sort of, and in very Star Wars fashion, it starts instead of with a text crawl with a narration, talking about the universe that you are in, right? And it says that it's very Warhammer 40K or Dune like in some ways, where it's like, oh, this king and queen, this king noble royal family has ruled for hundreds of generations or whatever the hell it says. And then they expanded, and then it says they kind of the feeling I got was
They
they
mysteriously died. They were
they
assassinated.
mysteriously died by an assassin that we still have no context on. And also that they were once benevolent, we're meant to believe, but then descended into tyranny. But the problem is that we don't know why they're fighting. There are all these references to all these people they've killed, but we don't know why they're doing it. Like, who are they fighting against? Tell me.
Exactly.
Tell me who the mother, like, who is the adversary here? It doesn't make any sense. And so you don't have any concept of stakes. What you have is this royal family and their Warhammer 40K-esque fanatical followers and this kind of entrenched nobility, right? But you don't know why they're doing what they're doing besides just to be like cartoonishly evil, right? Like there is a purpose to the Empire destroying the world of Alderaan in A New Hope, right? You don't get a sense that there is really a purpose besides, pure unadulterated evil for its own sake about what the troops of the mother world are doing. And you don't get a sense that there's any goal that they have. So the question is, what is the rebellion even against? And I think that's what's so confusing, because you don't understand, like, oh, they killed my family. Like, I don't even really get what General Titus, why he's on the outs with the old, mother world. Like, it's so vague that his desire
he
for
got his soldiers killed.
Yes, exactly. But like,
far.
what the hell does that mean? And you can't make me have sympathy for this character and his desire for revenge if I don't understand the actions, not only his actions that preceded this, but the mother world's actions that caused him to suffer. You know what I mean?
It's not clear, because we're told at the beginning that humanity used up Earth's resources and then expanded into space. And this was supposedly under the flag of the motherland, right? And then we were told they expanded, went on for a long time. Then the royal family was assassinated, and then this Belisarius took power. And that's around the same time this rebellion started on the outer worlds.
Right, but
so
the implication is that the royal family was
rebellion.
No, but the royal family was also evil, because that is in a flashback with the princess where the king who was assassinated tells his daughter that he hopes she could be better. But this guys,
he tells his daughter's bodyguard that she should be better, right?
Yeah.
But did you notice that the king is Carrie Elwes, by the way?
When she becomes queen, I believe she'll bring a compassion that I've lost after all these hard years of war.
It will be the dawn of something better.
That's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's and weirdly he does this like Jim Carrey face. I don't know how any other way to describe it. When they're doing like the explanation of the motherland and all that, he's like standing on the thing, like holding up his like bone. By the way, they don't explain those bone stabs at all either. I feel like that's an important part of the backstory. But he's like standing, he's doing this like Jim Carrey face, where he's like this. I don't know why he's making that face. I like Carrie Elwes as an actor, but that was a strange performance choice for that. He's also got kind of the haircut from Jim Carrey's, why am I forgetting the actor's name? His counterpart in Dumb and Dumber. He's got his haircut.
The bowl cut.
Yeah, he's got like the blonde bowl cut. Don't know the deals. And then one of the things that stuck out to me in this movie is the
Jeff
fake
Daniels.
beards. Jeff Daniels, that is. Yeah, Jeff Daniels. The fake beards in this movie though. The beard they put on Carrie Elwes, the beard they put on Belisarius, whoever plays him, I can't remember the name. It's like they are the fakiest beards I've ever seen. To the extent when I saw them on the screen with these, I laughed out loud. I had no idea it was coming. When I saw these beards, I laughed. You know the beards I'm talking about.
Yep.
They are pretty funny beards. So it's weird that you have things like that happening in this movie too. There's just strange things. There's strange like laugh out loud moments that you aren't really supposed to laugh at, you know? Like, when the guy
Like everything.
yeah, when the guy's talking to the bird thing and all that, and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, he's friends with the animal and all that. It's like, I was watching it with my wife, who's not really a big sci-fi person at all, and she wanted to watch it. She's from South Korea, and Bae Doona is from South Korea, and a very famous actor, so she wanted to see, her in this. So we watched it, and she was just, I've never heard her just like lampoon a movie so extensively while she was watching it. She's the one who gets mad at me for doing that. She was doing it herself. I was so proud of her, but she was doing it herself the whole time. She's like, well, why doesn't this guy just fly away? Like, he's on this flying creature. He just leave, and I'm like, well, he did have a line about how he pays his debts and he's an honorable guy. But at the same time, you could just leave. Probably would.
My wife told me to say in this podcast that she asked, why the hell are we watching this movie? It's terrible.
And like, the thing is, I wasn't excited about this movie. I was cautiously optimistic in that I was like, all right, well, it's it's something new. The trailer looked like it was all over the place. I was like, wow, this movie looks very big. If they handle that well, it could be really cool. They didn't, but it had that potential. And then there's like the character of Jimmy, who's voiced by Anthony Hopkins, which is just such a cool choice for an android character as far as that voice, because this android is supposed to be like ancient, that had fought for a long, long time under the kings. And then mysteriously, this race of seemingly very sentient, very feeling, very emotion having androids refused to fight anymore after the old king died. And nobody knows why. They just became pacifists. And so they were used as workers until, this one, has a connection to one of the girls in the farming community and kills one of the soldiers or whatever. And like, I'm intrigued by that character and those androids' backstories. Like, I actually think that's like one of the only things that I really found was interesting in this movie is, what is the backstory to these robots? Why do they feel this way? Anthony Hopkins' character seems to have the most heart and emotion of like any character in this film. But we sadly don't get very much of it at all. Apparently in the R-rated director's cut or whatever, there's a lot more about that. So I guess I'll watch those parts. But, so at the beginning when like he has that conversation with the girl by the river and all that, I thought that was kind of a neat science fiction moment, with this ancient android talking about his past and all this kind of stuff, having this, moment where they're both mistreated by, this bad invading force, kind of, even though he came with him. I like that moment. But that was kind of the only moment in the movie I really liked. So
I fear we lost some measure of our honor since that betrayal. I'm afraid our compassion, our kindness, our very joy died with that young girl.
I don't know. What do you think about
my
that?
problem is that it just reeked of the Huyang Ahsoka relationship, like the wise old droid who's been there for 1,000 years or whatever, and so I didn't find it particularly interesting.
I think there was a very different backstory involved there.
Look, there could have been some more interesting, I think, like Knights of the Round Table elements in that. Like, I think there is something there.
Yeah.
I agree with you, where you could do like the robot Knights of the Round Table or something, and that could be like a fascinating addition to a sci-fi / fantasy universe, which this is both things. It can't choose the world can't choose what it's going to be. It's just going to be everything all at the same time from every possible era. But we should talk about some of the like, in addition to the Seven Samurai and Star Wars, like this movie is so derivative. I mean, like, I can literally, if you want to talk about A New Hope again, like, let's talk about the beginning of this film. It is a young character with unrealized potential on a farm, discovered, invaded from the outside by a vastly superior power. Then
let's go to the cantina, though.
Yeah, the cantina is literally just a rip of the cantina from A New Hope, also populated by a allegedly lovable rogue who has a spaceship that's going to take them off world. Like it's
just of aliens.
It's just the same a bar fight. It's literally just the same fucking movie. Like it's crazy.
Even with that cantina scene, especially you can't call it anything other than the cantina scene because it is more or less the cantina scene from Star Wars.
Exactly the same.
If Ponda Baba had come up to Luke Skywalker and grabbed his junk, that's that is it wasn't quite similar in that regard. But I thought
more
it was a
edgy
little bit
this time, DoA.
I thought it was a little bit strange that both of the first two action scenes were a sexual assault into the hero, giving the beat down to a group of bad guys. It was like, all right, like one is okay. We all saw that one coming. The girl gets dragged into the barn with the soldiers. They're going to, do bad things. And the hero reluctantly shows up and saves the day. Okay, sure. We got that out of the way. Like that happens all the time in tons and tons of films, another very derivative thing. And then it's like, okay, sure. But then in the cantina, we essentially get like the same thing where the person she's with is like sexually assaulted and attempted to be sort of kidnapped, right? Because this other guy wants to, use him for his own pleasure, right? And then the hero like beats down the bad guys again and saves the day. I was like, didn't we just have essentially the same scene? Only it was in like a barn and now it's in a bar.
But I don't think so. I guarantee you by morning, you're going to be begging me for more.
I said move on.
Like that puzzled me greatly because that entire fight scene, that entire conflict could have just been skipped. You could just had the guy, hey, I've got a, Charlie Hunnam come up in his kind of dubious Irish accent being like, hey, I've got a ship. Have you heard? I can't even do it.
You sound like a New Zealand accent right now.
Well, there are random thick New Zealand accents in this movie, so you just never know what accent somebody's going to have. There's no rhyme or reason to it at all. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of like cohesion culturally to accents in this film. But so he shows. He could have just showed him, hey, heard you need a ship, right? But oh man, that was reminding me of something else that I wanted to talk about. That connected to all that, but please, if you have something to say while I think about this,
but more about A New Hope. I mean, it's exactly the same character. Like, I think the problem here is that the character that they run into, Kai, right, is basically just the worst derivative form of Han Solo.
I remember now. Go ahead.
Because when we get to him, he's also supposed to be a thief or a smuggler, right? Except with Han Solo, it's very explicit that Han Solo is a smuggler up front. But when Kai, this character, is just in the bar, it's not clear what his job is. He just he's like, oh, I will take you to and introduce you to all these people to help in your rebellion, seemingly with no motive, even though I'm a shady character, which obviously sets up his ridiculously predictable betrayal because he has no other motivation for doing what he does. Like, Han Solo gets fucking paid to do shit. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, we will pay you to take us to this place, right? In this case, they're like, well, we can't really pay you. He's like, I'm gonna do it anyway, out of the good of my heart. It's like, no, he's clearly a scumbag with an ulterior motivation. He's not just some Irishman he's not like a leprechaun with a heart of gold sitting around in a tavern waiting for a bar brawl victory in order to cart the winners off to some far off planet, and also on the way introduce them to a bunch of other badass people who are going to save them. Like, come on, man. Like, it's so, the characters themselves are so naive and dumb, which also, I'm just going to put this out there, DoA, is another Zack Snyder problem. He makes female characters so stupid. Because remember, he was responsible for the storyline of Wonder Woman. And the issue here is that in Wonder Woman is supposed to be a highly educated woman in classical philosophy and literature, very intelligent, right? Very, she's a thinker, part of a society that values philosophical discourse. And the instant she sees a hot guy, she just decides which side of a war she's going to be on from the outside world. Okay, so she's like actually a bimbo. And the problem here is that we're supposed to believe that Korra, the central character, is the product of an elite mother world education, right? And she can't see through the most basic plot or question anyone's motivations.
Yeah, well, she's mistrusting when she needs to be. Ooh, I'm so smart and I'm seeing through this, and then she's like overly trusting when we need to move the plot along.
But like, that's the
which is a
Wonder
dumb
Woman
reason to do it.
problem. That's the exact same problem, is that Wonder Woman is overly trusting of the random people she meets by pure happenstance.
Yeah.
And like,
Well,
it makes these characters appear very naive and very stupid.
Well, remember how we get to the cantina scene to begin with. They're going to find this guy who was Gunnar's contact to contact the Resistance, last year, last season when he sold them the grain. They go there and they see this guy being captured by bounty hunters. Now, one would think it's like, oh my gosh, there goes our only source of information. We need to like break him free or something like that. And that leads to some sort of chase or action scene. Instead, she's just like, let's go find somebody else instead. Like, there's this general I remember that he exists somewhere. So let's go into this cantina randomly and just ask if anybody knows where he is.
Also,
that's your answer. I know this person exists. Forget our definite way of contacting people who need to contact. Let's try to go after this other person that I just now mentioned that I've not talked about it before at all in the movie, and let's walk into this random establishment and just ask people if they know where he is.
Has anyone here heard of General Titus or know where he might be?
Right.
But,
and like the way that this is explained for about General Titus at every possible level is so stupid, DoA. So I can go into a random bar on a random planet and figure out exactly where this general is. And yet, DoA, when they capture him later in the movie, what are we told? Oh my God, he's one of the highest profile fugitives in the entire galaxy.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
apparently the mother world can't find him. All they had to do was walk into a bar and just be like, yo, who knows where General Titus is? Everybody's like, I do. He's a gladiator now. It's like, so there were no bounty hunters that could find him. He's the easiest man to find in the whole fucking galaxy. And not only that,
the worst part though? Oh, go ahead.
Not only that,
though. Sure.
Not only that, but when we get to the end, when the regent, Cora's adoptive father, he's like, why do you think I'd be happy knowing this now that my very deadly adopted daughter and the brilliant battlefield strategist General Titus, even though we have no background, on anything that he did that was brilliant. Yeah. He's just a drunk guy who everybody knows is just fighting in a gladiatorial arena on a random ass planet, but nobody can find him. Nobody can find him, apparently, even though he is literally on a stage in a giant coliseum. It's like, you can't figure this out, guys. Like, this is why this movie is so fucking bad.
You know what's even funnier is that you were like, well, why doesn't the motherland, or the Imperium rather, why doesn't the motherland, just go into one of these establishments and ask about it? Well, guess what? There were multiple bounty hunters working for the motherland in that bar. And yet it took our hero to go in and ask about it. Think about it. Kai was one of them. And then there was the orc looking dudes that carted the other guy off. Like, they were both there. They actually had people in there and they still didn't figure it out. But like, I love all that. And then in that it's terrible, but I gotta say, hey, props to Kai for being probably one of the most ambitious bounty hunters I've ever seen, where he realizes he has one important person. He's like, wait a second, I'm not just gonna get the easy turn in. Like, I respect Kai, right? Because it's like you're playing Sea of Thieves or something like that, and you get like a really nice treasure chest or something. It's like, you could just go turn it in and make bank. He's like, no. I'm gonna go for the full ship of loot. I'm gonna let's use this bounty to go pick up other, all the other expensive bounties and then get the big cash in at the end. Like, I was like, hey, people should have realized this was happening. But props to Kai for like going for it. He's the kind of guy that's like, he's like double or nothing 6 times and he's up like, $20 billion. And they're like, well, do you want to just take the $20 billion home, or do you want to go double or nothing again? He's like, let's go.
Let it ride.
Yeah, exactly. So I love Kai from that perspective. It's like,
that's true. I do enjoy that about his character.
For it. Yeah, he went for it. Like, he went to the extreme. He went for the bounty, like, high score, which I do appreciate that. I don't think it was an intended thing, but he's like unintentionally an amazing character for that. So I appreciate that.
I love that take. Actually, that's a fucking banging take.
He's
That's
my
probably
bounty
actually the
hunting
best.
hero right
That's
now,
probably
you
like the
know?
best part of this movie, actually. And it's
Yeah.
not even because his character is good. His character is very stereotypical, but his actions kind of it does make it more interesting. I think the problem is that the coolness of that factor just gets lost in the wash of him carting them around and then introducing them to every stereotype of all time. That's just increasingly boring. So you don't get any of the backstories besides like one-liners from these people. So there's no like actual weight to their personalities. But and we just got to jam every sci-fi trip. So they go from the Star Wars canteen and he's like, but wait, I have this guy.
I know a guy.
I know a guy, and he's like imprisoned. And even though you, Cora, are an incredibly skilled assassin and could just literally easily kill the 3 people who are guarding him and then just fly off with him because he's enslaved, basically. No, we're not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to take a guy who looks like a hybrid of Schwarzenegger in Conan the Barbarian and Val Kilmer in Willow. And he is going to tame a griffin and do a way too long scene flying around with it that looks like something from pulp 80s fantasy. So they got they've got the pulp.
This is where they
80s...
said they were inspired by heavy metal.
Yeah, heavy metal. Exactly. It's iconic from the eagle scene or the griffin scene in heavy metal, right? And so, but DoA, you use words like inspired. Like it's Seven Samurai inspired. No, it's just ripped off. There's no. The Magnificent Seven was inspired by the Seven Samurai. A Bug's Life was inspired by. This is just the Seven Samurai, right? And it's the Seven Samurai, except we need to use every other fucking sci-fi fantasy stereotype. So now we've got the heavy metal sequence that we didn't need because we've already seen it. You know what I mean? We've already seen this. And so it's not inspired. It's just a direct lift. And it's not even an interesting lift, right? It's very boring. And then you end up with this absurd character who is literally just wearing a cloak around his shoulders for the rest of the movie, showing off his six-pack.
He's like a guy who was like in the movie 300 and got lost and just found him again in this one, you know? I was amazed.
It's the same cloak from 300. It's like Zack Snyder's like, this worked in one of my movies. It's going to work in every one of my movies.
Hey, I mean,
should have just cast Gerard Butler, right?
I want to know, like, where that guy gets his like oil supply, because he is oiled and he is
and
shaved.
his fake tan supply.
You can tell, like, that is a baby smooth washboard abs, and it's always like freshly oiled. Like, where does he get that stuff? On the farm, first of all, is that like the bearded guy keeping him chained up, being like, here's your oil? I like my blacksmith farm hands oiled up.
But he trains the griffin, DoA, and then they just leave, and the griffin never comes back. I thought the griffin would come back.
It kills the bad guy.
But who cares?
Whatever, which, like, who knew that was gonna happen, right? Like that. I mean, how did he capture this guy to begin with? Like, how did Tarek? How did he ever end up owing this guy, right? Because the guy seems like a moron. But then again, everyone kind of seems like.
By the way, and then there's even the sequence where he gets his freedom is derivative, because the dialogue is just so terrible, DoA. Because he's like, "Oh, you don't have any money," and then he's like, he volunteers, "But I do love gambling." And then this is exactly the scene from The Phantom Menace where Watto like gambles for Anakin. You know what I mean? Like,
boy, he's a mother. Same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. So, but why you would be like, yeah, I've got this slave, and you could buy him, but I do love gambling. It's like there's not even a back and forth between the characters there. He's like, but I will just give him up for free.
I can't imagine this gambling guy really believes for a second too that, like, if the 3 people that he's supposed to get as his gambling winnings, does he really believe they aren't just gonna like kill him anyway?
Exactly.
Like how
they're armed. They're armed.
One of them is a known criminal. The other 2 are mysterious and definitely armed, like you mentioned. So it's like, how did he not think like, well, so basically I've talked myself into either giving this guy away or getting killed,
Exactly.
He does get killed, but he gets killed by a bird instead.
So we have that like 80s pulp sci-fi, just like random aside there. And then we go into, you already talked about the Nemesis thing where she fights a spider where apparently no one is going to help.
Oh, but Gunnar, like he inexplicably goes to try to protect this kid where he hasn't shown an ounce of backbone at all. There's really no motivation. And everyone else just watches. They're just like,
by the way, remember that Korra is an orphan from violence. You think that Korra wouldn't go save that girl?
Exactly.
Like, so everybody's just standing there watching while this girl is in mortal danger. And by the way, why doesn't somebody just shoot this fucking spider? Like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, literally, Korra is an ace shot, has a pistol at her hip, and she could have just been like, kablam.
No, we had to watch a Nemesis like carve it up with her little not lightsabers.
But also, like, even that fight, it doesn't make any sense because at the end, the spider just like lifts her up while she still has the swords, and then she just stabs the spider. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, why would you lift somebody? It's like, think about this. If you're fighting somebody and they have two knives, why would you grab them by the throat in front of you and just not expect it to be disemboweled? Like, nobody would do that.
Too. They're glowing. They're not hard to spot. It's not like you forgot they were there, you know? But that happened, and then that's when my wife went, "This is so stupid." And I'm like, yes, it is. Because it's like they have this big fight. And then it's like the oops, I forgot you had swords moment. It's like, I don't.
And then with General Titus, then we've got to go into Gladiator, right? Because we have to steal from every possible movie, and it's like it's literally the same story of Maximus from Gladiator. It is a general who is now a gladiatorial fighter in an actual Roman style Colosseum, and he doesn't give a fuck anymore about his own life, right? And he has to be restored to find revenge against a corrupt nobility. It is the same story, but the difference again is we got an entire movie about why we should give a shit about General Maximus, right? And where he came from, and the slaughter of his family, right? That gives him motivation. And we get to see that he was brilliant because he's winning battles at the start of the film. And we get to see why he's a black sheep now and why he gets taken, what his fall from grace. In this one, we're just told he's a brilliant strategist, and he's just now, like, for no reason, not a general that's vaguely referred to. And then he's just like drunk. And then he's like, revenge, as you pointed out earlier. I love revenge. And then his only other purpose in this movie, DoA, is to give an extended speech about the value of rebellion, which, again, everybody gives speeches, but when you have to care about the person for the speech to have an effect. I have no idea what any of these people stand for. So it's just vague speeches about rebellion against a power that we don't, again, as we said earlier, we don't understand the motivations of. So we cannot care about the conflict.
There's a lot to talk about in that scene specifically, including that speech. I want to get to that later. I don't think we're there yet, but I want to get to, because I've got a lot to say about that scene too. But in every one of these, like, pick up the crew member scenes, there's always these inexplicably, like, dumb, weird things that happen where it's like, she's like, clean him up. And then we see him and he's like in this room and this little alien has like a garden hose with like, and it's not, they don't even try to make it look science fiction. It is just your Home Depot off the rack garden hose, like, sprayer attachment. I'm pretty sure I have the same one on my garden hose hanging outside my house. And she's just spraying off, and she gets like halfway done, kind of, and like, and then Korra's like, "That's enough," and it's like,
and his face is still covered in mud.
Yeah, and like one half his body's face. Like I was wondering, are they going for some sort of, like, first of all, the hose thing just looks so weird and out of place in the science fiction universe, and that's just a regular, obvious off the rack garden hose and garden attachment, and then you've got the halfway. I'm like, is there supposed to be some sort of imagery here where it's like he's become like partially clean, and now through this quest he can become fully clean and redeemed or something like that? Like, I'm trying to understand why you would make this sort of artistic choice in your movie to spray this dude off like halfway with a garden hose, and that's it. Like, I don't get it. It was just one of those inexplicably weird bad things. Um, can we go back for a second, because there's a big Game of Thrones thing going on in this, where we have a chance to see the Battle of the Darios. Because both Dario Naharis actors from Game of Thrones are in this film on opposing sides. So we almost got it, but we haven't had the direct confrontation yet. I'm hoping we get it in the second movie, because the guy who plays Atticus Noble, Ed Skrein, I think is his name, was the original Dario Naharis in Game of Thrones. They famously and kind of inexplicably recast him with McKeel. I'm trying to remember his last name. McKeel Husman, who is Gunnar in this movie. So we've got both Dario Naharis actors in here. So we could have the Darius showdown, Dario showdown. I want to see it. I want to see them fight, because I feel like that would decide who is the better Dario in Game of Thrones. And I just need anything positive to cling through with that show. So we'll just leave it there. But we do have both Darios here, just so you're aware. Yeah.
And also,
the
like
Maester Pycelle actor too, I think.
there's a bunch of Game of Thrones actors in this.
What other ones are there?
We should talk about the acting too, because part of the reason this movie sucks is that Sofia Boutella, who plays Cora, is absolutely dreadful.
I don't think you're meant to die here. General.
Stop calling me that. I have no rank, no privilege.
I'm here to make you an offer. To give you a chance at redemption.
I am beyond redemption.
I have no time for pity.
She cannot act whatsoever. Her character is extremely boring. There isn't any kind of reaction that she really has as the main character. She's not even remotely believable as a badass central figure. I think she's a dancer by training, but DoA, the problem with her is that she's like a waif. And so when we have all of these fight sequences, because it's never explained that she's like genetically modified or that she's some sort of cyborg like Admiral Noble is, right? That it's not remotely believable that she's taking out all of these 240-pound giant Marines with her strength. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I'm really tired of this in Hollywood in general, because as a counterexample, if you think about The Expanse, Bobby Draper, the Marine, the female Marine in that show, is a total badass and is built. She's huge, right? And that doesn't, I think I find her in The Expanse to be very attractive. So it's not like you can't have an attractive female lead who is a believable combatant. You know what I mean? But like the casting of this woman, you neither get the sense from her physical, she's not imposing physically, nor is she a great actress. So she just destroys this central role for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I was distracted by so many other things with this movie that I didn't even think about a lot of that. I thought there was some very wooden delivery. The big one for me is when we get to that end scene right after they beat the bad guy, right? And we talk about how Gunnar saved them, and she delivers the line kind of randomly. We all owe him thanks. He saved us.
We all owe him thanks. He saved us.
And it's like, and everybody clapped, because apparently, like, Gunnar, the essentially the accountant of the village, did something semi-noble finally, which you shouldn't even have the opportunity to do. Are we to that scene yet? Are we to kind of?
We
like
could talk about the
ending?
ending. Yeah, it's terrible.
Have we kind of get there? I'm going through my notes to make sure we didn't miss everything. Leading up to this, so they eventually go and find Blood Axe, and Blood Axe's sister, and they
which sounds like an orc from the original Warhammer universe, by the way.
Yeah, hey, props to them for just going with the super crazy generic fantasy kind of names for some of this randomly. But he gives a speech to like his army about why they should come and defend this village, and it's like the least inspiring, like lowest key, like lowest energy speech ever given, kind of. And so and then like only like half a dozen people joined them out of this big group, and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either, really. I mean, if I heard that.
It's so DoA, it's so stupid because
Yeah.
remember that this is a rebellion, and any kind of rebellion knows that you can't make the wrong move against an overwhelming force or the rebellion is crushed. And so let me tell you what they're doing. This is why the premise of this movie is so ridiculous. This is like, again, let's use the Amish because these are space Amish people. Let's pretend there's a war in like there's America turns into a tyrannical autocracy and they're shaking down the poor old Amish in Ohio for grain, right? Which again doesn't make sense. But let's pretend they are. How many people are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go on a suicide mission that might destroy the integrity of our rebellion to save the Amish?
But what if they sold you grain last year?
DoA,
That's our motivation.
You can't, if you are leading a fight against an overwhelmingly superior force, you can't just go on a suicide mission. Like that's not the point. You have to compare. By the way, DoA, just compare it to Andor. Compare it to Andor. Andor realizes that you have to be very tactical and like build up over time in your rebellion. That's why it's good. Because imagine if the people in Andor were like, fuck it, let's just send it to save the space Amish. You're like, you are a terrible leader of a rebellion. You are literally going to sacrifice the very valuable lives of the people who are on your side because like they're going to kill 200 space Amish people? Like, no. Like, I understand that is why you are doing the rebellion. Like the motivation is to eventually save the 200 space Amish people. But sometimes you can't save everybody on the way to the greater victory. And you have to keep that in mind the whole time. So the fact that he's like, well, I did do all this work setting up this rebellion and building up this people. Fuck it, man. Let's just all go on a suicide mission against a giant spaceship. It's like, no.
You can have unrealistic things and unrealistic motivations in movies, but the tone of that movie, the context of these things has to be as such that that's accepted, right?
And think about Star Wars: A New Hope.
This is presented too seriously.
They go on a suicide mission, but the whole movie is setting up that they had to do all this intelligence and set up this rebellion so that they could have a chance of defeating this. So it's not a hopeless suicide. And they have to because it's coming to kill them.
They have no choice.
They have no choice. But also, and I mean that could be an argument here as well, but also they have spent what you assume is years trying to get some sort of advantage.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So they do. The thing is about this movie is it gives you a reason for everything. There's seldom good reasons, but it always does at least attempt to give you a reason. Because he has that little chat with his sister where it's like, well, if these morons found us, then the motherland can't be too far behind.
That is a good point.
We're kind of found either way, so let's go for it. So that is one of the better loose motivations for doing things. I still don't think it's great, and I still don't think it's set up well enough, but it's at least within the realm of loose reason, which is me being very generous, but it's there. And again, I do feel like I need to give this movie credit for at least trying to give us reasons for their, unrealistic decisions, right? There's always something in universe that tells us why this is happening. It usually just doesn't make much sense. Again, given the seriousness with which this universe is presented to us. This feels very Game of Thronesy. It doesn't feel like a place where heroics work very often.
Right.
That kind of thing. It feels more, it feels like the consequences for those kind of things will be more realistic, right? So, when someone does that, it just comes off as kind of like ignorant and naive, whether it works or not. But.
And why Star Wars is weirdly more believable in this way is because of the Force, right?
Like you've got magic.
Yeah, you've got magic on your side. You know, there's hope because there is a superpower that is involved. And I guess you could say there's hope because of Korra's fighting ability, but that doesn't really seem to matter. You know what I mean?
They all get captured very easily.
Exactly.
And it really is like it's and this is one of the things I really don't like about this type of movie too, is they ramp up the drama and then and the tension, and then they get the heroes out of it through really like unrealistically dumb means. So they're all captured. It's over. It's like the heroes are captured, they are not getting away, the bad guys have won, and then completely out of nowhere, Kai, the smuggler guy that's gathered, you know, his big, you know, like treasure chest loot of bounties, goes to Gunner, who clearly has a thing for Korra, and he's like, "Hey, guess what, buddy? Like, I know you're a coward, so you get to like do the paralyzer thing, you know, and like stick her with the ice pick thing." And he's like, "And you better do it, or else." And you know, he didn't need to do that. He could just walked over and done it himself. Their case closed. He didn't even need to keep Gunner alive. Why was it? What was the point of keep? There's no reason for that. But yet he gives Gunner. He hands him the means to free the hero, apparently. And you know, of course, Gunner's a coward, but and his is like, oh, this is his big moment to finally be brave. But it's not like something he created for himself of his own volition. He doesn't become a brave character in that moment. He's basically like handed the keys to the bravery car and backs it out of the driveway. Like he doesn't do anything truly courageous here, you know? He frees the people that are obviously going to be able to beat the bad guys. So I hated that, where it's like the heroes didn't get out of the situation in any sort of heroic way. The bad guy just did something really dumb and was punished for it.
Also, it doesn't make sense that Kai would be the one encouraging him to do this. Because what does Kai care? He's captured them. He's got his reward. Why isn't it Admiral Noble who's the one who's like, push the button? Right? Why is it Kai? It's weird.
The reason is because we're supposed to really be convinced that Kai is a bad guy. Because when, you know, if you're watching this movie and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's betraying them. Like, he has to change his mind, right? He has to be good on the inside. This is supposed to be the scene that tells you, no, he actually is a bad guy. Haha, you thought he was Han Solo, but we're subverting expectations. And he's truly a bad guy. So I think that's the reason why they made him do it, was to really convince us that he was indeed one of the villains. But again, in a more realistic storytelling sense, of course, it'd be somebody like Atticus, who's shown a penchant for cruelty the entire way through. You know, whether he's boning the leader of the village at the beginning, or boning Leviticus. That's what I'm going to call, because he hits him with a giant bone. So I'm going to say, you got boned. He's boning him, right? That's just going to be my term for it.
He's
Leviticus,
boning everyone.
You know, the King Leviticus, he seemed very friendly. He was a squid who named himself after a book of the Bible for some reason, and he gets boned. He gets smacked with a giant femur. You know.
Also,
so
like,
again,
he's a squid, just like there's the fucking Mon Calamari in Star Wars. They took the Uruk-hai directly from Lord of the Rings and just put they just repurposed the sets. They're like, hey, these old Lord of the Rings costumes look pretty cool. Hey, Peter Jackson.
If they were the same. I wonder if those are actually the same costumes.
Can I have some of them? We're just gonna like airbrush them blue and like cool space orcs.
It's either those, or it's the orc costumes from Bright, that Will Smith movie about like a modern day thing where there's orcs and elves and things like in modern day or whatever. Like, but they're very generic orc looking costumes. That is for sure. But yeah, going back to what we were talking about, obviously in a storytelling context, it should have been Atticus that did it. Technically, it shouldn't have happened at all, but it would have been more believable if Atticus had tried to make Gunner do it, because he just is cruel and wants to see people suffer and do things outside of their nature and all that. Like, he's crazy enough to like maybe force Gunner to do that. But Kai, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, he's a risk taker, but like still, that seems outside. That seemed out of character for him, you know? And it was done for a very ham-fisted reason of trying to cement him as a villain, right? And then that leads into just, you know, another silly fight scene, another slow motion jump through the air. You know, yeah, why, like, it's funny because the ship is crashing onto the bridge, and like Korra sees Atticus down at the end of this, where like clearly the ship is going to crush through that and he's going to be on his own. And like any reasonable person would think, oh, sweet, he's going to be like cut off from us, probably get killed in this crash. Job done. Let's get out of here. But instead she has to like go and do like a power slide under the ship as it's going through, and there's like, now we can 1v1, you know, cash me outside. And you know, that then they have their fight, and she beats him very predictably, and
but he's not dead, of course.
no, we almost had a when they were zooming in on him, I was saying like, and his eyes open, and his eyes open, and his eyes open. We almost got the classic science fiction bad guy is not dead because his eyes open at the last minute scene, but they didn't do it. So I was like, okay, all right, they didn't do it. And then that led to, you know, kind of a interesting scene actually, where we got to see him have like this like a you know, meeting on the astral plane with Barcelleus, I don't know, whatever the bad guy's name is, who knows. But the hilarious thing in that scene, remember I said there's always a dumb hilarious thing that happens in every scene. The dumb hilarious thing in that scene, when they're hooking Atticus up to all the stuff, they talk about like attaching the Neuralink, and the Neuralink is also the name of Elon Musk's experimental brain technology that he's been like really you know, appallingly testing on chimpanzees and things like that. But it's hilarious that Elon Musk's crazy brain technology is also called Neuralink. Balasarius. So anyway, Elon Musk's brain technology thing where like put the probe in your brain like is also called Neuralink, and that's the term they use for this. So I'm like, oh wow, so the Elon Musk thing actually like it actually came through. He actually made a big emperor, and here in the far future, they're still using Neuralink. Wow. So props, you got it done, Elon. Good job. No social media in the future though, so
I mean the technology was cool, and that was actually I think one of the more innovative things that they did in terms of sci-fi imagery. It's one of the very few things that I think really worked in this film and piqued my interest, because it felt like it was something that I hadn't seen before and was a very interesting aspect of this universe, but everything else was just terribly bland. And I think you can look, man, I don't like the latest Dune adaptation, the Villeneuve Dune adaptation.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's not Dune, but yeah, it's not it. But what I do like about that film is that it's very visually striking and it's very beautiful. Like, I think the design in that film is great. And it really feels like the world of Dune that's set up by Frank Herbert in the books. So I think it's extremely successful in creating the visuals of Dune. And this movie is just so bad at creating a visually compelling universe that this is the one moment where I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, it was that moment, and then it was the stuff with Jimmy. And even though Jimmy like definitely looks like one of the Omnics from Overwatch, like it's the same robot design. He is literally just an Omnic. I thought the backstory was interesting that they gave for the robots, and I thought using Anthony Hopkins' voice for him was a really cool choice, because Anthony Hopkins just has one of the best voices on the planet.
Sure.
And so to have him be the voice of this like ancient android, I thought was a really cool decision. And so I love that. But yeah, those two things are really kind of the only thing that that really stood out to me. Everything else was just so carbon copied and derivative and boring, you know? I was taken out of the moment a little bit when the doctors were like, hit him with everything. Because I'm like, is that really, that doesn't sound, because everyone else in the movie speaks with like this very kind of strange sort of like you know, old Englishy kind of way of putting words together in a sentence, and then you've got the doctors that are just like, you know, saying modern day you know, crime drama dialogue, you know. So that was weird. But the astral projection to the, you know, the neural projection to go and meet with Belisarius was neat. I'll give him that. But then we get that great line back when everyone's palling around after the bad guy's dead, that you know, that Gunnar saved them. We all owe him thanks. He saved us. It's like they all were just literally saved by him. They know. I don't know why we needed that line. And then in that scene as well, now we can talk about that speech earlier where Titus. Jaimin, yeah, I'm trying to remember the actor's name. It's Jaimin Hansu, yeah, who plays Titus, and he's in like everything now, and he's a good actor. I like him in, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy. I like him in a lot of different stuff he's in. And even as Titus, like he brings a certain like, a certain gravitas to the character, right? There's presence there, but the dialogue they give him is just not good. Like he starts giving this motivational speech after the last fight in the movie has happened, and everyone, it's another time when my wife chimed in and she's like, why is he talking? Like nobody's listening now. Like this is not the time you need this kind of motivational speech. The movie's over, He's like,
this small act of defiance gives voice to the voiceless. This is more than just a fallen Troik officer and some of his men. It's the beginning of something.
Truly, this is why we fight for this. Like, yeah, we know, thanks. But it's like another thing where like they were putting this together and they're like, man, we really need a scene or a bit of dialogue where like Titus really shows us that he's that general, he's that leader. We need that scene. But we didn't put it in the movie. We got to put it somewhere. Well, what if he gives us like a motivational speech at the end, and that's what they decided to do? But it feels so weird and out of place.
And also lacking any kind of resonance because we never figure out what the stakes of the conflict are or why anyone is fighting.
Yeah, we don't really feel the greater motivation. Again, because we don't really understand the conflict at large. It seems like this rebellion has not been going for very long. It seems like this rebellion isn't very big. So all of this other fighting that happened was like in the conquest. But if it was humanity doing the conquesting, how did Korra's world that was populated by humans get invaded? Were there other humans out there before the motherland came in? Like, we're not really given an explanation of like how this universe actually operates as far as like how these planets are populated, which is really important because then we don't really understand this conflict at large. So the universe is so under-realized, that it's hard to really get involved in anything, get invested in anything.
And to me, that's the biggest problem because you just then are totally apathetic to the stakes. And even like, let's pretend for a moment that the stakes are that they kill the king, they destroy the King's Gaze, which is the big ship that's on the fringe of the galaxy. From flashbacks we've seen, there are about a bazillion other exactly the same ships. So what does this accomplish? Like in Star Wars, when they destroy the Death Star, you're like, oh, this is a huge blow to the super weapon that they've been building for years and years and years. You get a sense that there's progress in the rebellion. All I see here is a bazillion other identical ships that are just going to come kick their ass as soon as they kill this one. So like, what are they even accomplishing?
Even if they destroy the King's Gaze, then then 3 other ones show up and you're like, well, GG guys, it was a nice attempt. Good job. We really did a great job there.
And it's the same thing as if you were to destroy one of the Imperium's ships in Warhammer 40K. But in portraying the Motherworld fleets as a derivative of the Imperium, they miss the point that the central conflict of Warhammer 40K that is interesting is like between the Imperium and Chaos and between the Imperium and other races. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like that's the world makes sense because there isn't a small guerrilla rebellion. We are in Warhammer 40K. We are dealing with entire empires at war with each other. We are dealing with invasions from other dimensions of chaos. You know what I mean? So like the stakes are so fucking high that you're like, destroying one of these Imperium ships doesn't mean anything. It's about the Warhammer works because the scale of the conflict is dialed up to the maximum it could possibly be. Whereas this is
I'll just grab one of my many Warhammer codexes right here from because there's a line that's at the beginning of every codex, if I remember, that really describes that. Where it is, let's see. It's something like I'm trying to find it right now, but it's like in the grim darkness of the future, there is only war, and there you go. That's the Warhammer 40K world. They're just fighting everybody, and that's it. And
one life and one ship. One life and one ship is just meaningless because there's an infinite number of lives and ships in order to be ground down by this war machine. Like individuality in the Warhammer universe, the 40K universe, is irrelevant unless you are literally like a space wizard again, right? You are
Primarch, or
exactly.
or the Emperor himself.
Yeah, exactly. So, it doesn't really work to have a guerrilla rebellion against what is effectively the Warhammer Imperium because there is no possible victory.
Yeah. The main conflict in Warhammer, occurs when there's this giant rift, between the essentially genetic sons of the Emperor, who some of them rebel, buoyed by the forces of chaos, which is this like kind of hellish, weird, like extra dimensional, power that comes from the warp, which is what they have to travel through to essentially move through light speed. So this rebellion is there, but the reason that it works is because it's some of the most powerful beings in the Imperium that have started this, and they're backed by this like crazy powerful force of like dark gods and things like that,
And they've got a bazillion ships, right?
Yeah. Whereas this, it just doesn't seem, we haven't been given any sort of indication that this rebellion that exists would ever have any chance of being successful.
And let me just offer like an alternative, DoA. We kind of have that ultra powerful individual in Korra, right? Because she is this exceptional warrior, and we see that.
Sure.
But what would make this more believable is if she had a fleet of giant ass warships behind her as well, where you could enter into a feasible conflict.
Mm-hmm. Or, like, we're supposed to believe all these characters are so powerful. Like, well, show us. Don't just like mention off the cuff, like randomly, like, oh, he's a prince. Oh, she's really strong. Like, give us a reason to believe that, and give us a reason to believe why they're not just strong for a human. They're strong enough to, enter into this conflict against something like the motherland, right? And we never get that. So, I am genuinely curious about the director's cut, the R-rated version, the too hot for teens version, apparently the too hot for regular Netflix version that's coming out, because they've said in interviews that that also gives a lot more backstory with its longer running time. So I'm gonna watch it because like I want to know, like I'm curious enough to want to know like what the other what the actual backstory to this universe is, because we don't really get it from this. And I'll go back to again saying like this should have been a miniseries. Like if you want to tell a story as expansive as this seems like it wants to be, you got to give yourself time one way or another, or you have to do it more effectively. They don't seem to be able to do it concisely or effectively, so we need more time. And so I think this should have been a mini series in the end.
I like how you, DoA, you're like, I want to watch more of this when everything that we've
I'm a sucker for new sci-fi universes.
The universe is already ruined. It is already too derivative. It's just bad 40K, bad Star Wars, and bad 80s pulp fantasy jammed together. Like, I'm curious, what revelation from the director's cut are you going to receive where you're like, this is now a cool sci-fi world? Because they've already fucked it up so badly, it can't possibly be cool.
At this point, the reason I want to watch things like this is because I want to get a better understanding of why they cut the things they cut, and then critique that. So
morbid curiosity, a need to dissect. Okay, I accept that, because like this is more knowledge.
Let me finish. I've always loved bad movies and like kind of failed products like this, because I want to understand the human decisions that went into making this happen. That has always been very fascinating to me. So the lore is kind of irrelevant. It's more I need to know the lore to understand like why these poor decisions were made. That's what's really interesting to me, and that's why I'm gonna end up watching it. And I'm a sucker for punishment. I do this show, so clearly that's true. Yeah.
All right. Well, you have any final thoughts on this? Like, I'm sure we're gonna do part 2 when it comes out. Right? We have to. It'll be hilarious if nothing else. This movie is really bad. Everything about it is bad. It's everything you've seen before. The lead actress is terrible. The writing and dialogue are terrible. The storyline and concept is completely god awful. And there isn't anything interesting about the aesthetics. So there's essentially no reason to watch this movie other than to laugh at it.
Oh, the music is very generic as well.
Oh, the music's terrible too.
Because it was Junkie XL that did the music, the same guy that did the music for like Fury Road and stuff like that. And Fury Road had a good soundtrack, but it was a very sparse soundtrack. When this person tried to go big epic space opera, it turned out like the rest of the movie very generic. The only thing I want in the sequel is more Jimmy, and I want the Dario showdown. Aside from that, like I can't even really recommend watching this. I really can't. And I think that's the first time I've said this on this show. Like I probably felt that about Secret Invasion, but like this is the first time I'm going to say, like, don't watch this. It's not worth your time. It's too long. You don't get anything good out of it that you haven't seen out of a million different better science fiction and fantasy properties. It's not worth it. Don't watch this. It's not worth your time. I'm actually just going to say, if you made it to the end of the podcast and you haven't seen Rebel Moon, don't watch Rebel Moon.
Watch Seven Samurai instead. There you go.
Yeah,
just go watch Seven Samurai.
Or watch Chronicles of Riddick. If you want to see
true. Watch Chronicles of Riddick, which is actually
really
good.
A genuinely good attempt at creating a truly unique new science fiction universe. It failed in other regards, but if you want to see someone really try to go unique and new with sci-fi, try that movie. I really enjoy it. I still enjoy it. But yeah, don't watch Rebel Moon. I will. That is my official take. Don't watch it.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week, guys, with Blue-Eyed Samurai, which we know is good. We're a bit late on that one, but we will watch it all and discuss it. Hopefully we'll have a bounce back after a couple bad weeks.
We're so desperate to watch something good on this show. Like,
hey, we watched Scavenger's Reign. That show was great.
I know, but most of what we've watched has been bad. And it's not like we've been trying to watch bad things just because we love to rip on stuff. Like, that's, if you know me, that's definitely not me, at least, you know? But like, we hoped all these things would be good. I had high hopes for Rebel Moon, you know, like, like, give me something new and unique. But just, it's all ended up bad, guys. This is just the state of science fiction fantasy right now in visual media. If you want good science fiction and fantasy, read books. That's what it comes down to. Like, it's not,
or watch
it's not
old
on
stuff.
The screen. Yeah, or watch old stuff. But the new stuff that's coming out, that's the real truth, guys. I'm going to speak the actual truth. Good science fiction and fantasy does not exist on the screen in any new stuff in like this current era. It's in books. Go read books. That's where
Except for
it's at.
Scavenger's Reign and The Expanse. But also,
very rare.
The Expanse was also books. So there you go.
And The Expanse was like out years ago already. It's like
True.
not even new anymore. Yeah. Go read books.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.